This week on MS Refresh, price increases for Microsoft 365 and Office 365 licenses, and a look back on all the new items added to the roadmap in August. And boy, were there a lot of things. All that and more. Subscribe to stay in the know. This is the MS Refresh Show. Hi there, and welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. This is episode 35 for the work week of August 23rd, 2021. Coming to you from the East Coast, my name is Matt Wade.
And as always from the West Coast, Sean Bugler. How are you?
Hello, Sean. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, just beautiful, slightly smoky weather here on the West Coast. Makes me want to barbecue safely.
So we have Hurricane Henri coming through, and I think it knocked over a couple, some of those white deck chairs, and that's about the max that it did up in upstate New York and over in Massachusetts as well. But I know it's dropped a lot of rain south of us, New York, Connecticut, that kind of thing. But otherwise, it hasn't been nearly as big of a deal as they thought that it was going to be.
And I'm glad to hear it. You know, you can never really tell with the French. It's
exactly what I was thinking.
To our friends in France, I'm sorry.
He's not really.
Oh, that's I'm back in the swing of things. The fall semester just kicked off, and I am already just kind of underwater, dealing with work and school again, planning for a vacation. Speaking of which, you're going on vacation next week, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is true. Yes, we're going to be driving down to New York to stay overnight on Friday, and then hit an early one-way flight to the Caribbean, and we're staying there for a week, and then hopefully have no issues with a COVID test on the way back, so that we don't get stuck there to quarantine. For 10 days, right?
Oh man!
But yeah, otherwise, we're looking forward to it, and should be a good time.
Now, this is like the first full blown vacation you guys have had in quite some time.
Yeah. Minus a couple trips to visit family in Massachusetts, and our trip to Florida back in June. This is really the first thing since I think February of 2020 for us. So yeah.
Of course, June being when you and I saw each other. So
correct.
That's hardly a vacation, purely work.
That was definitely all work and no play.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I think it'll be great. And of course, for those of you who are, watching at home, we are going to put something on next week. We're still figuring out, what that's going to look like, but it'll be a little bit less structured than what I think you've seen from us before. So
yeah, he says we. He means just him. That's
me and the voodoo doll of Matt that I've been working on for the last 17 months.
Well, I can see why. Just a quick reminder, formatting for those of you who haven't watched in a while, or if you're not totally following along. So this week we are going to make the effort to cover what's new on the roadmap. And I ignore the word updated on this because holy crap, a lot of stuff updates on the roadmap during a given month. So we're going to cover all the new stuff that we think that's relevant to talk about. It's actually most of it that has been added to the roadmap since the beginning of this month, so August. If you look at the updates, wow, there were several hundred of them. And I was clearly naive going into this thinking that we could do new and updated. Things get pushed out, things change from in development to launched, whatever. So we're sticking to new for this week, and we're going to try to, think back a little bit for next month as to what we might want to do for this week and perhaps the third week of the month to maybe split things up that way. But
people only care about the new stuff anyways. Who wants to hear about a thing we've already heard about? More new.
Because all you hear about is every month that one thing keeps getting pushed out anyway, So, yeah.
It's just a recipe for depression.
I know. That's that.
It was when I was in the GCC side of things. That's, what's that? Teams has been punted. I remember when Teams was it was going to be Q1 of whenever, and then it was Q3 of whenever, and then it was Q2
of next century. But
yeah, I don't miss that.
So I think that's probably a good time to bring us on to the news because you got a lot to cover, Sean. I'm just going to sit here and relax and just sip my iced tea and enjoy.
Must be nice.
This is the news.
Project for the Web will let people without project licenses mark tasks as complete or update the % complete. That's expected to land in November. We're approaching the end of the MPP to PDF era finally, just when you think Microsoft is going to stop collecting money for every little thing. Rolling out in December, video files uploaded to OneDrive and SharePoint will soon automatically get captions, one of the many deliverables expected to placate us as we climb out of the classic Stream experience. On to Outlook. In November, Outlook will begin suggesting results from the Global Address List, or GAL. Are we still allowed to say that?
I know, right?
When composing an email or scheduling an event. This is particularly useful for those of you who have been flying by the seat of your pants trying to spell my name for the last 4 years. Bugler. Come on.
You're the ultimate bulger.
Outlook for the web will soon offer tone suggestions in your email. Tone police in the workplace? Perish the thought. Useful for those moments when you start to get into someone's going to regret this email territory as you respond to that really pushy PM that just won't read the thread. You'll find the answer, Jack. I promise you it's there. Just try. That's coming in September. The Play My Emails feature in Outlook Mobile is getting a little love this October. The feature will try to identify time-sensitive and important emails and read those first. And personally, I cannot wait to hear about all the vendors who want to quote, jump on a quick call to talk about how they can help. Of course I do. What else am I doing? Later this month, OneDrive in the browser will get the ability to print directly to your organization's printers without having to open the file in a dedicated application. Well, it may not be your printers they printer, but you get the picture. You get the picture. Matt's going to love this one. Some new PowerShell commandlets are on the way in October that will let you display or hide Microsoft-provided SharePoint site templates in the template gallery. Because the last thing we need is a collection of high-quality, easy-to-use, scenario-based designs to interfere with our corporate look and feel.
Boo, PowerShell, boo.
They've been promising this one for years, so color me skeptical. According to the roadmap, modern SharePoint team sites may soon be able to switch the orientation of their navigation between the current sidebar nav and one that lines up at the top, similar to modern communication sites. The roadmap also mentions the visibility and alignment, so it's possible we may be picking up some more robust controls on the process, but we're just going to have to wait and see as we get closer to launch in October. Viva Connections! Who are we kidding here? SharePoint. We'll pick up new features like dashboard authoring, setting a home site via that SharePoint Admin Center, new and improved dashboard and feed web parts for your home site, and the Viva Connections app in Teams. Most, if not all, of this stuff is already out, so this may just be a formal transition to general availability, but we'll see, coming in November. There's a new update coming to the SharePoint Admin Center in September, bringing with it improved options for controlling when and where subsites can be created tenant-wide. Not creating them in the first place is improvement number 1. Grab your pitchforks and or the party balloons. SharePoint's View in the File Explorer feature, a mainstay of the classic SharePoint experience, is finally coming to the modern experience in October. As with the original feature, this will create a bridge between SharePoint Online, Microsoft Edge, and your computer, allowing you to interface with cloud-based files through a familiar desktop experience. An important caveat, it seems you'll need to enable a specific Microsoft Edge browser policy and a toggle in the SharePoint Admin Center. So, yay? If you're licensed for SharePoint Syntax, you'll soon have an icon in the search box that unlocks metadata-based search, including keyword, people, name, type, and modified. You can already refine searches by these fields, so more to come on what this UI is actually going to look like, but I'm having a hard time envisioning them locking advanced search behind a license, but they've proved me wrong before. Bring it on, Redmond. Finally, stepping over into Teams, there's an absolute barrage of new features that hit the roadmap. As we mentioned the other week, next month, the Q&A feature from Teams Live Events is coming to any Teams meeting or webinar for a more formal, moderated chat experience. System audio, sharing that while sharing your screen, one of those things you expect to be there on day one, but rarely is coming to users of the browser version of Microsoft Teams in October. Do you like niche but frustrating issues getting fixed? Of course you do! For those of you stuck using Teams in a Citrix or VMware VDI experience, you're finally getting multi-window support in October, which includes the modern meeting experience. Can you believe some organizations are still stuck with the old meeting experience from 2017 just because VDI doesn't like modern? I can. I know Matt can. A pleasant surprise for those of you who knew there was a difference between them. Live events and streams supported up to 100,000 attendees, and now Teams live events will too, as of September. They'll have to, since they're replacing the stream-based live events. You'll need to work with the Microsoft Leap team for assistance to take advantage of the raised cap, however. Later this month, Teams will soon, hopefully, more intelligently identify potential spam calls and label them as such, like iOS and Android currently do for your cell phone. This is a relief for those of us who are tired of people calling about my car insurance. Background effects are coming to Teams meetings in the browsers next month, including background blur, which means your awkward use of the Simpsons couch during meetings can now extend to when you're joining a call from a Holiday Inn lobby. Yay! Another win for the modern workplace. Since most of us miss chat messages when presenting during meetings, worry not. Soon you'll see bubbles pop up all over the place, so you won't miss a single distracting thing. At least on Windows. And don't worry, we checked. You can disable these if you need to. Dynamic View in Teams meetings, the recent update that allows Teams to intelligently shuffle the shape and size of people's faces in a meeting based on how active and loud they are, will soon let you configure the layout of shared content or people. Useful when you need to keep an eye on whether your department head is laughing at your jokes or not. Coming in September. Teams Rooms are getting a bunch of updates starting next month, including, but not limited to, integration with Surface Hub, Dynamic View to optimize shared content and participant videos, Teams Room video fits to frame, the ability for a Teams Room to join a large meeting as a presenter or attendee, the ability to lock a meeting from the room, the ability to pin and spot a video stream, the ability for those fancy new presenter modes to appear on the front of a room display, the ability to split video gallery across all available displays in a Teams Room. Teams templates, let's talk about those for a minute. An underused but powerful customization engine available when creating new teams. We'll be getting some enhancements later this month, with additional apps and channels available right out of the gate in the collection of Microsoft-provided templates. Sharing dedicated video feeds of physical items such as whiteboards and documents using a computer's built-in camera. Now, keep in mind, this is a big distinction here. We're not talking about just turning on a camera. We're talking about sharing a camera's feed as shareable content, the same way you would share a screen. That's going to become available next month, and it's a big ticket item in the education space. Welcome to fall, educators. When in gallery view in a Teams meeting starting next month, you'll be able to navigate across pages of 9 people to view all participant videos. This won't work for large gallery view, the 7x7 one, though hopefully someday. And finally, for our friends in the government realm, here are some Teams updates you can expect in the coming. I worked hard on this.
It shows.
Here are some Teams updates you can expect in the coming months. Teams device management in the Department of Defense Cloud, August. Breakout room presenter support in GCC High, October, and DoD, November. Breakout room pre-meeting room creation and participant assignment in GCC High, coming in January, and DoD in February. And lastly, sensitivity labels for Teams templates and Graph API for all government clouds, coming next month.
That was the news.
Where's my Gatorade?
There we go. That was good. That was a marathon. That was its own little Olympics.
That's my green screen.
Festival, I think there. Well, thank you very much, Sean. I was just sitting here like Baby Yoda, just sipping my tea, while you were off gallivanting around and doing all of that word stuff. But I'm curious. Out of all the things in that, what stood out to you the most?
You know, of all the things that were on that list, the thing that stands out to me most this week is something that didn't make it to the roadmap, but maybe should have.
Definitely.
And of course, you know what I'm talking about. 4 days ago, everybody's best friend in the Microsoft universe, Jared Spataro, announced that they would be raising prices on Microsoft and Office 365 plans.
There it is.
In the coming months, which, you know, mixed. I'm mixed. I will say that nobody wants, you know, prices to go up. But clearly it works. I mean, Netflix has done it, what, like 3 times in the last 3 years?
Yeah, probably.
So this
I'm
is
trying to think of what other, you know who the big one is right now that gets all the flack is YouTube TV. always upping
Yeah,
their.
well, that's all of them, all the over-the-top, streaming
Yeah.
services. Because here's a shocker for all of you watching. Turns out running TV networks,
We know cable is expensive to
fake
to
cable
administer.
networks. Who
Right.
knew? It turns out it's just not economical to let us just pick and choose the channels we want. Turns out negotiating with companies like Viacom that keep eating other companies is getting harder and harder. Setting aside that soapbox for a minute, here are the price increases thanks to The Verge for this screenshot here. So it's going into effect on March 1st, 2022. You can see that Microsoft 365 Business Basic is going up $1 per user. 365 Business Premium is going from 20 to 22. And Matt, sorry, I'm having trouble reading this. Does this say Office 365?
It says it at least a few times because heaven forbid we took the opportunity to clarify or align our branding with our licensing so that it's not completely ridiculous and hard to understand, especially given that we have Office 365 E3 and Microsoft 365 E3, which is just, it's its own version of beauty, I think.
It's just, I want to believe that somebody fought the good fight. I want to believe that someone in Redmond said, you know what, maybe this is our chance to simplify our plans, to simplify our licensing, or at a minimum, just simplify the names, for God's sake.
That's all I'm asking for.
And Satya said no.
Yeah, I would actually like to know who legitimately said no. Like somebody in these organizations has to speak up and say, this is stupid. We should fix it. And who is the person that said, nah, that's, Now, I realize that there's an entire population of people out there that make millions of dollars every year just being experts on licensing alone. So this takes a little bit of money out of their.
Are you saying this is big licensing holding us back?
I'm pretty sure I heard the lobbyists were down in DC and just banging on doors and all that stuff. But no, some decisions I feel like sometimes are made for the fact that oh yeah, there's just a lot of people out there that can make a lot of money off this stuff, and that totally upends it. But it's no, that should never be a real reason to not do this stuff.
And I refuse to believe that because Microsoft has no issues eating the lunch of the people who, support Microsoft.
True. Oh yeah.
Example number one is the Windows 365 eating the lunch of all of these third-party vendor partners that were, taking care of Azure Virtual Desktops. So they have no qualms. I like this. Let's get Panos on this. Panos seems to care about the user experience. Come on, he's passionate. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely. So yeah, I guess Sean, what do you think about the number changes though?
So I saw a bunch of hot takes. If there's anything that I love Twitter for, it's the hot takes.
Oh yeah, that's what it's there for.
Yeah, but this is, and Jared Spataro said it in the blog post itself. This is the first time that they have meaningfully raised their prices since Office 365 was announced 10 years ago in 2011. So you think to yourself, this idea that Microsoft has jam-packed a ton of value since it was launched in the first place. I mean, the Power Platform didn't even exist. The SharePoint Modern Experience was a glimmer in the eye of Jeff Teeper.
Yep.
So, is what it was on day one compared to what it is today, is it worth more money now? And the answer is kind of. But to that end, this is the argument they made when they introduced the idea of subscription pricing in the first place, was to pay for this stuff. And for some reason along the way, companies seem to have either forgotten that messaging conveniently or just waited until we forgot that, this is why they made the case for subscription pricing, is that, hey, just pay us a flat rate every month and we'll give you new stuff, better stuff.
Over time,
we'll just keep paying for it. But, now they're making the case but it's more stuff now. And yeah, that's why we're subscribing.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean,
more stuff.
I don't know. I see where you're coming from on that one, but at the same time, so some of these were about 10% increases, and a couple of them, I think most of them are lower than that.
I just finished my math courses. Can you not bring percentages into
this? Just doing a quick, assessment here. And that's way lower than inflation. And also I don't expect to pay, $22 a month for an E3 license forever. Of course, the value of $23 or $22, whatever it is going to change over time. So you have to increase the prices. You can't not.
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not like they added all these things and didn't come up with new revenue streams. They've been finding ways to nickel and dime and
totally,
micro
yeah.
purchase for years now. Like
Totally. But haven't you ever like had a conversation with your grandfather about how, like, you know, back when I was a kid, the pack of cigarettes was 5 cents, you know,
are
like,
you making an inflation argument?
I mean, it's there, right? Like, but like,
I'm sorry.
the value
did
does
your
change
pay go up with inflation?
based on your description there. You make it sound like you don't expect there to be an increase in price ever, right? Like, so over the course of 30 years from now, when we're on Office, I don't know, we've slowed down the rotation of the planet, so it's or the revolution of the planet, so it's Office 368 or something like that. Are you still planning on paying $22 for an E3 license? Like, is that, do you think that's realistic?
No, it's definitely not. And I think that it's a disingenuous argument to make. But to that end, I think that it's disingenuous for Microsoft to pretend that simply because new functionalities come online that they are charging for in other venues is, you know, that's the case to be made.
Especially because their revenue streams here, they broke things off specifically so that they could charge you separately for that item. Now, is it optional? Sure, but some of the feature sets are just so tempting. Like, I think Syntax, for example, offers
they're
such...
so deeply embedded that it's impossible to ignore them. Like, it's almost a dark pattern how deeply embedded these things are.
Right. And the Power Platform, for example. I mean, what was the one that the Cortana scheduling email, Microsoft Scheduler thing from Outlook that cost like, wasn't it like $10 per user? It was more than
$10 per month.
It was more than most of the Office 365 licenses that are out there. Like, what? How could you ever justify this one minor plugin into Outlook that could ever be, you know, I think that was as much as most of the business and business premium licenses. And it was as much as like, how much is like a Power Apps premium license?
Oh God, they just changed it. I can't remember the pricing, but
it's still in the same
more.
ballpark though. Like, you can't tell me that if I'm paying $20 a month for like all the premium connectors in Power Automate, that's worth only twice as much as Cortana scheduling my meetings for me. Like, that's insane, you know, like. But the breaking off and, like, you know, making all these little disparate things, the disparate fiefdoms that now have their own revenue stream and have to, like, you know, be moneymakers separately from the original source does cause consternation, because overall you're paying for, you know, Azure AD P1 plans and, you know, the EMS plans that go on top of Office 365 to create Microsoft 365 with Windows 10 licenses, by the way. That's what that Microsoft 365 in the E and G and A fields is. Right. The fact that we haven't clarified that yet just blows my freaking mind. But
gotta love it.
Yeah.
No, and I'll say that I think they did mention in the blog post that the Teams VoIP didn't, like, Teams audio get lumped in there. Like,
yes, that is true. Yeah, I don't know if it was VoIP or if it was. I don't know if this is what you mean by VoIP, but the dial-in, the dial-in meetings is now included. Is the aspect that I think is included, which is great. Like, that's a really useful feature. But in a modern workplace, theoretically, that dial-in number should be an emergency use only kind of thing. Sure. Again, theoretically, but I do know that even setting that kind of stuff up, like, oh great, we have this new feature, but I'm well aware of plenty of organizations that have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to people to get that working with their firewall setups, with their security setups, and all that other stuff. So, like, they have to now pay out to use that feature that somebody in upper management says, hey, we now have this. Why do we not use it? And it's like, oh, well, you know, we have 15,000 people in this organization, and it's a project to do that. And then we have to pay somebody to do it. And, like, we don't have that experience. So you're still paying for it, you know, ultimately. Maybe not Microsoft, but somebody else.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's part of the calculus ultimately. So it's interesting. Like, is it expected? Yes, but honestly, like, so here's what I think. Raise your prices, fine, but use that as an opportunity to simplify this whole experience. Like, it's so much harder for us to go and, like, look at the old version of a license package and the new version of, like, if you just shake the whole thing up.
Yeah.
But when you keep everything exactly the same and you incrementally increase the price, well, now it's an open question. Like, is what they're introducing that much more valuable than it was, you know, 4 years ago? Whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the only reason they're not doing it is because Google is in the process of pushing a bunch of people off of a cliff right now in the transition to Google Workspace.
Yeah.
Like they raised their price. They did what I think Microsoft should have done, which is they completely nuked their old plans and came up with a whole bunch of new Google Workspace plans. And so they're in the process right now of pushing a bunch of companies off of a cliff because there's no legacy pricing. Like you don't grandfathered in. As soon as your term is up, whenever that happens to be, you're off, and we're pushing you onto a Google Workspace plan. I think Microsoft is waiting at the bottom of the cliff to catch as many of those people as possible, and they're going. Mark my words, because the fact that they didn't drop Office 365 from the branding tells me that this is not the last conversation we're going to be having around licensing changing. In the next 2 years.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and also the fact that I think that they've sucked up a whole bunch of customers from Google in the past, because I remember so I was on a school board. My local school board from 2008 until like 2015, I think it was. And at that point, Google for the classroom licenses were free for education. And then Google actually started charging, but Microsoft decided to do the Google thing, which was to not charge for those licenses. Now, if you want some premium features, you got to pay for them. But generally speaking, like an email account, Teams, things like that were essentially included. And there were a crap ton of organizations schools that move from one to the other. And think about how much of a heavy lift that is to move an entire university of 20,000 kids, that are only there for 4 years at a time. So it's not even like somebody could work there for, the course of 15 years in their career or something. Like that doesn't happen. Or hopefully it doesn't. And and you got to up and move all these people. And maybe some of them halfway through their studies and they just, potentially, lost stuff or whatever. But yeah, Microsoft really sucked up a lot of people that way, and I think you're right that they're always looking at being a piranha in the water when somebody's being pushed off the diving board from Google.
So we'll see. I mean, I think the backlash is muted. I think that it's going to happen, and like I said, I don't think this is the last time we're going to be talking about Microsoft and their licensing. Obviously not, but I do think that those circumstances lead me to believe that there's more in the pipeline.
Yep. Nope. I agree. All right. So I think that's probably a good chat on that, because we'll have to see what the fallout is of this once, everything. I think, what is it, September 1st? Is that when the enabled date was? I forget.
It's a March something.
March it's 1st. Next year. Oh, okay. So it's a while. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. A few months.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So I will see what how that kind of settles with time. But I think we'll take a couple questions before we finish today. So one that popped up for me, you had mentioned in the news that captions will be automatically included with recordings or videos in SharePoint and OneDrive. So I think this is just generally all videos. So essentially this is Microsoft's going to do the basically OCRing of a video, if you will, kind of like how you can do with a PDF. So you don't necessarily, this isn't just about a meeting recording. This can be any video. And I'm assuming that this is going to be part of the new modern stream experience, where these captions are probably going to be part of the web player. I don't know if they're going to be shown as part of the transcript or not. Like right now, if you go to the old stream, there is a transcript on the left side if there is transcript content, and it will align with when people speak. I'm hoping that that's the case. I'm hoping it'll be that smart, but for all I know, it may just be captions that show up at the bottom. So we'll have to see.
My understanding is that it's going to be a separate file, but that we may or may not actually see that separate file. And so to make sure that I speak specifically to Hermine's question here, I don't think that it's going to be burned in, quote unquote, because I do think that particularly from an accessibility standpoint, it's going to need to exist as some sort of text file.
Right. I would hope so.
It's not going to be captured in the recording in as much as it will be something that's associated with the recording that you can turn on so you can see the captions.
Right, yeah. And I would hope that you can export it and do something with it. I know for meeting recordings, which I know was the original first question, I think, you can turn on captioning during a meeting, and then you can turn on transcript, and the transcript will be downloadable afterwards. And then when you upload the meeting recording with the transcript together, you get that experience of them being aligned. Right now, Stream in OneDrive and SharePoint doesn't support that yet because we don't have the full modern web player. But if you go into the classic version of Stream and you upload a meeting recording and you upload the meeting transcript at the same time, or upload the recording and then add the transcript to it, it will align the transcript with the video and identify speakers and things like that. So I'm hopeful that we'll have some sort of export aspect here, but there wasn't enough detail in the roadmap item to really speak to it confidently, I don't think.
Can you export stream captions in the Classic?
I don't think it can automatically pull captions right now.
Well,
I could be wrong on that one.
It does auto cap, like you can turn on captioning. I know that much. But I'm wondering if you can export it.
In just a standard video or in a meeting in Teams?
Oh, a standard video.
Yeah, I've actually never had to do that, so I've never tested it myself.
Yeah, that's an interesting
So I don't
one.
know
I'm
if that's a
curious.
feature parity thing that they're catching up to what it currently is in Classic, or if that's going to be new that Classic doesn't actually have.
Yeah, no, that'll
But
be
it would
interesting.
be good
We'll
either way.
keep an eye on that one for sure.
Yeah.
Here's a fun question for you from our friend Jamie. Is there anything not on the Microsoft 365 roadmap that you think should be? So, Matt, do you have any initial thoughts?
So I give them credit. So the roadmap is a HiveMind deliverable. And in many ways, I hate HiveMind deliverables because everybody has their own different way of supplying what they, and like they're probably being forced and it's probably being like yanked out of them, and they're being pulled into the roadmap kicking and screaming because nobody wants to put a date publicly on a project they're working on. And that's not just them, that's everybody. We have a roadmap internally at work, and like I'm always, having to poke at people. I'm not even a project manager. I'm just looking at this from a transparency perspective to be like, hey, like, are you still going to have that out at Q3 or is it going to be in Q4? And like, we don't even really get, any more detailed than that because people get so scared about being late. But I think there needs to be more central ownership of the roadmap such that the standard like way of delivering, like the formatting is the same, the descriptions are similar, especially when people pick the cloud platform or the cloud instance. That kind of kills me because I still think some people think GCC means all three of the cloud GCC platforms.
I guarantee you that's the case.
Typically not the case, right? For like in the real world, like, if something's coming to GCC high, it's not going to come there until it's been a GCC first. And like, that kind of kills me. So I'm kind of hoping that there'll be some improvements with this new UI, update that they're doing. But I don't know if there's so specific like features.
Yeah, I guess there's two ways to ask this question. Are there products that shouldn't be on there that aren't on there that should be, or are there features?
I mean, I will say, spending so much time on the roadmap lately, I'm very impressed that Teams is on there all the time because I follow Teams mostly. I'm less impressed that there's like not a lot of representation from the Power Platform. Like the product listing includes Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, and like there's almost never anything there or anything updated. And there's no way that nobody's working on stuff in the background. Like there's no justification of product group if you're not putting stuff out, right? Like,
Oh no, you'll love this. You know where that information goes? Docs.
We'll probably do the, yeah. But it's there though. Like there's a filter.
But that's the problem. Is you're 100% right. It should be, and that was going to be my answer. Like the Power Platform should be on there because it's one Microsoft.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree. But yeah, I've rambled now. Well, let's hear what yours is.
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like it's the Power Platform to me is something that ought to be on there, and I know that there's, Jamie's jumping in with the second bit here, which is, they announce it via blog posts mostly, which is, you can make the case that that's just a marketing effort. That's outreach. But if you're talking about like admins that are trying to make plans,
yes, agreed,
that are trying to understand, and I've got a meeting with the CTO in 10 minutes and I want to be able to spit out something so I can tell them what's coming. And another argument that they make all the time is, oh, we're releasing waves. So you announce them in waves, but then they roll out over the period of 6 months. So as soon as you announce the wave with all these features, dump it onto the roadmap.
Yep, agreed. As an example, I'm on PowerPoint right now, and this is on all cloud platforms, everything. It's just filtering by PowerPoint. There are 4 items in development and 3 rolling out. And like one of them from the rolling out is from February 2021. Another one is from June 2021. And the rest of them are not really all that big, but I know for a fact that the PowerPoint product group, because I talk to them on a regular basis, are working on a lot of cool things. They're just not listed here. And I'm not to call them out specifically or anything, but just I know looking at that one.
Word, Excel, OneNote. Where's OneNote?
Yeah, actually, is there? There's one. No, 2 items here on development and rolling out for OneNote, and one of the only rolling out item, release date calendar year October 2020. We're a year later. Like why is it still rolling
It's
out?
still coming. God, you're
Right.
so impatient, Matt.
I know. The worst. But yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Features. Let's go ahead and flip that question on its head to close us out. Are there any features that aren't on the roadmap, whether they're announced or wish list items? Is there anything that's out there that you would want on there?
And this is just me like having a wish list of features that I want at all, kind of thing.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that one. I don't know what.
All right,
what
we're-
features.
We'll
You
put
know
a
what?
pin in that one.
Microsoft 365 groups simplification, just like how they interact with each other. The fact that creating a team doesn't make an Outlook group anymore, but it used to, and like all of that stuff with the Microsoft 365 group stuff.
Sure, like a
That kills
unified,
me.
simplified. No difference between where you create it. Because of course there is a difference if you create it in Teams versus creating
Yes.
the admin center.
Yep. Exactly.
Irrevocably.
Right. I know.
I would say that
Kills me.
mine would be to bring back a canceled item, which was the syncing of Active Directory security groups with Microsoft 365 groups. That
All right.
that was something that I was actively the ability to take a security group and drop it into a Microsoft 365 group and have that work
Okay.
meaningfully.
Yeah.
Because if I remember correctly, they canceled it and they were like, we're reevaluating. And then it didn't get added, and they were like, "Oh, but there's a third party, or not a third party. There's an open source thing we did on GitHub that you can download and install on a server." And no, just give me the thing where I can just put a security group in a Microsoft 365 group and let me be done with this.
Yep. No, I'm with you.
If this
As an
microphone wasn't on a boom arm, I'd drop it.
As an example, so I just looked up Power Automate. 0 in development, 0 rolling out. Power BI has 1 rolling out, and that was June of 2020. Like they're really
They
like
must
I don't
be
even,
canceling those features. They must be canceling Power Platform.
cancel. But never mind. I'm not going to say it. But yeah, that's where I am. So, all right. Anything else you would like to cover before we finish for today, Sean?
No, I think I've had my fun.
You had a lot to do today.
But yeah, more to come. So for those of you who we've already seen a few people suggest interviewing a guest speaker. Maybe we'll let you know. Follow us on Twitter if you don't already. Matt, throw up the thing. Where's our names? Here we
Yes,
go.
sir.
I got us.
There we go. All right.
Follow us on Twitter, where we'll give you a little bit more of a sense of where we're at. But as far as things are right now, same time, same place, except for Matt, who we will not miss.
That is absolutely true. And with that, I think that about does it. Thanks so much for watching. As always, a like and a subscribe, much appreciated. Leave a comment below to start and continue the discussion. Sean, no thanks for joining me this week, and I can't wait to miss you next week. But I can't wait to see everybody else the week after to actually go through all. Actually, the week after is Labor Day. Are we going to do Labor Day, or do we want to do Tuesday? TBD. Probably going to do Tuesday since Labor Day is a holiday in the U.S. and we have it off, so we'll figure that one out. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you all at some point in the near future that we're not quite sure which day it is yet. But yeah, take care.